maybe dress more like you're in mourning.
Over a little bit of breaking news. Connell, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on News Nation. So the deadline is midnight tonight, and they're not even close. Still no agreement from Congress on how to fund the government. The White House now saying a shutdown is likely.
Nothing is inevitable, but I would say it's probably likely because they want to give health care to illegal immigrants, which will destroy health care for everybody else in our country. And I didn't see them bend even a little bit when I said we can't do that.
Also tonight, no more fat generals. That's just some of the message from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, why he held an unprecedented gathering just down the road from the Pentagon, and what else he had to say. Plus, Trump RX. Are you soon going to be able to get the medicines you need off a government website? Dr. Mehmet Oz, head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, with us tonight here on The Hill on how the administration says it's going to try to lower drug costs. And you just saw a little bit there from Alex Kapp. Protests continuing in major cities all across the country over ICE and the National Guard. A major demonstration expected in Chicago. If that happens, we'll take you there later this hour. But first tonight here from The Hill, only one place to start. A live look just over our shoulder here as they are on the precipice on the Hill. Now, normally this is the point in time where one side caves. Talk, all the talk, and then someone caves, right? When it comes to a government shutdown. Tonight, both sides are saying this one is different. That's a live look at the Senate floor right now, and here's what we believe is going to happen. Both expect, and if/when that happens here in the upcoming minutes, it means we are now about 5 hours and 58 minutes away from a government shutdown. If you think that this could get put together here in the last moment, well, listen to what the leaders had to say today.
We are not going to be held hostage for over $1 trillion in new spending on a continuing resolution, nor are we going to be held hostage to allow illegals to get free health care in a continuing resolution.
Sitting in the room, it was very clear, behind closed doors, that the president hasn't fully grasped the magnitude of the disaster he's causing Americans.
All right, now if a shutdown happens, it won't close everything, but it will bring many government services to a halt. Essential workers will stay on the job, some without pay, while non-essential employees will be placed on unpaid leave. Here's some of what will be affected. National parks, monuments closed. The Smithsonian Museum closed as well. Non-essential federal workers, as I mentioned, go without pay. No new approvals for small business loans and grants. That would be a big one for a lot of folks out there. Then you get to the issue of permits and licensing and the delays there. And then just sort of everyday things like passport and visa processing delays. Here's what will continue, though. Social Security and Medicare payments, which so many Americans rely on. That keeps going ahead. Unemployment and jobless benefits as well. Issues that maybe not might be top of mind right now, but in the God forbid moments you need, like weather forecasting, disaster response. Then this, of course, is another big one. Think about all the big federal law enforcement agencies, FBI, ICE, DHS, Border Protection. They'll still be on the job. So, too, will be the TSA, thank goodness, if you need to fly. Veterans medical care and services as well, which so many folks rely on. Same, too, with the Postal Service. That's what will stay and what won't stay. On the won't, the president is also saying this could be the time, if there's a shutdown, that a lot of federal workers lose their jobs.
We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse.
All right, our guy on the ground, Joe Khalil, live up on Capitol Hill. Joe, as I mentioned, this is normally when you get a side that caves, right? They talk for weeks and for days, and then someone says, all right, we strike a deal. You haven't heard anything close to that tonight.
There are 0 people we've heard from today, Blake, who believe that there is a chance of any final miraculous deal. No, the government is going to shut down. We have 2 votes here. First one, as you mentioned, the Democratic version, the Republican one up next. Both sides are entrenched in this, Blake. Republicans say they simply want a CR, a bill that extends current government funding for 7 more weeks to give both sides more time to negotiate, and they're not going to swallow $1 trillion more in spending. On the Democratic side, they're arguing this is about health care. And almost immediately, you're going to have people losing out on subsidies that have been going to help them pay their premiums. Unless Congress acts, they want that to be a part of this. Listen to both sides here. We've talked to a number of members, lay out the stakes in their own words.
Americans understand what's at stake when the Republicans have decided to make huge cuts to the Medicaid program, to Medicare, and now taking away the tax credits for the ACA.
Right now, there's no negotiation. It's a shakedown. The Democrats have asked for $1 trillion of additional spending, and they want it all for just a 4-week opening of the government. That's absolutely ludicrous.
Blake, we remember what happened, particularly with Chuck Schumer last time. He voted to avoid a shutdown. So you could argue that Democrats are almost politically incentivized to keep fighting, in their view, and not vote to pass this. And they ultimately need 7, at least, Democratic votes for a bill to pass and fund the government. That is not going to happen. So what we have now are plans potentially to get out of one. And what you're going to continue to hear are arguments on both sides trying to sell the public and try to win that sort of PR battle. Whoever does win that might actually have a better chance to get out of the shutdown and have leverage on which side ultimately caves here, Blake.
All right, Joe Kay live tonight up on Capitol Hill. Stay with us throughout the hour if you don't mind, Joe. So if the government shuts down overnight, how long could it last? That would then be the next question. And what lasting impacts could we see? Now, Washington has been down this road before, and here's what we know from recent showdowns. There have been 20 funding gaps, if that's the term we want to use, since 1976, but really only 4 shutdowns that lasted more than 1 business day. The longest and most recent, 2018. During the first Trump administration, of course, you could see there 5 full weeks, lasted 35 days, dragging into 2019. In that month, plus 380,000 government employees were furloughed with back pay. 420,000 continued to work without pay until the shutdown ended. As for the economic impact, a Senate report later showed that the last 3 shutdowns cost taxpayers $4 billion. The 35-day shutdown alone reduced the GDP of the country by about $11 billion, according to the Congressional Budget Office. That's a drop in the bucket. When you talk about our national debt, though, nearing $37 trillion. How about this, though, today? With all this as the backdrop, at the corner of Wall and Broad, they yawned, didn't blink. Markets closing higher today as the deadline to fund the government got closer, but that could change, of course, if a shutdown drags on. Full panel here with me now to break down what this all could mean. Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation political contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. Joe Cunningham's the former Democratic congressman from South Carolina. She's back doing double duty. Lindsey Granger, co-host of Rising on the Hill. And Mark Short, former White House legislative affairs director in the first Trump administration. We have some news tonight. Thanks for hanging with me.
No problem.
Appreciate it, guys. You signed the paperwork to shut it down the last time, right?
Yep.
What are you looking at?
Look, this is what usually happens, is that the team that is asking for something other than the clean CR. The clean CR is essentially, let's just continue to spend what we spend. Let's just do what we did last year and add nothing, subtract nothing. That team loses. Excuse me, that team wins. Okay. The team that doesn't ask for anything special, they're the ones who can sort of ride it out. Right now, I think the Democrats, by adding all this other stuff, they won't be able to hold it together. At some point, they'll give in. The clean CR always wins. Why do I say that? Because it always has.
That's usually the rule of thumb, but I saw a poll by Strength in Numbers Verisight that found that 34% would blame Republicans and 23% would blame Democrats, and that's only because what the Democrats are fighting for is the Affordable Care Act extension, and what they lost from the big, beautiful bill is Medicaid, Medicare, and some of this health coverage for several thousand Americans.
I get all that. Look, the Republicans are going to get blamed one way or the other. I didn't say who was going to get blamed politically. I'm just telling you who's going to give up first. And it's the team that is asked for other than a CR. They want something special. They always give up first.
You were the line, Mark, between Trump and Congress in the first term.
Such as there was one.
Fair to describe it that way.
Keep going.
What's he thinking right now? I mean, he's basically saying, we're going to fire people. They want to put illegal immigrants back on health care, and you hear all the talking points. What do you?
I think this shutdown's a little bit different. I think typically shutdowns are about a top line. Usually Republicans are the ones pushing a shutdown to get spending under control. This time the Democrats want to spend $1 trillion more. I don't think it's really about the policy, though, Blake. It's because the base of their party is upset for them not standing up to Trump, and they're pushing them into a shutdown. Our side has been in this situation several times before. The base of your party pushes you into a shutdown, and you don't really know what the out is. For President Trump, I think he learned in 2018 it didn't help him to have the shutdown politically. I think he looks at this like Mick said and says, the Democrats want enforcing this. We passed a clean CR. I can ride it out. What I don't know is he really serious about all the firings. I do think Russ is a committed. Russ is a committed fiscal hawk.
Okay, so Russ Vogt is the director of management and budget, just for the audience.
Who worked under Mick in the last administration. Mick can attest. There were several times that Mick and Russ brought cuts that many conservatives would have championed that Trump said he wasn't willing to do. And so whether he's willing to go through this or whether he's using a negotiating tactic, I don't know.
I want to get to Joe, but you think that's where he is right now?
Yeah, I think I tried to convince Trump to care about spending as spending. What Russ has been able to do is convince Trump to care about spending as leverage, and that's what he's got right now.
What about to the point, Joe, that and you were in Congress the last time this happened in 2018.
Mick, I think, passed that shutdown off to me. Right?
What about that point on Chuck Schumer that he has to do something because he got hammered by the, no matter what side you're on, we all watched and saw what happened. He got hammered by the base earlier this year when they were at this in the spring.
Yeah, I think the base is pressuring this, and this is something they grabbed onto. And Democrats, this is like the 1 point on the board Democrats have as far as polling goes. The Republicans are polling better on crime, on immigration, on all these issues, but Democrats poll so much better as it relates to health care. So this is something they latched onto, and look, if premiums go up for millions of Americans, which they're expected to, I think ultimately President Trump's going to own that.
So again, if you're just joining us here on the Hill tonight, a live look there on the Senate floor, 2 votes expected to take place. None of them expected to pass at midnight. Then if we get there, the government would shut down. And then the question becomes, how much longer would it stay shut down? The betting markets right now, more than 3 days at about 65%, more than 10 days right now at north of 40%. I just checked it, 47%. And just to give you a sense right now of where both sides are, after that White House meeting yesterday between the president and Democratic leaders and Republican leaders, here's what the president posted online. It was a picture, let's show it, of Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat in the House. And you can see the image here. We'll put it up on the screen. That from the President of the United States. Obviously not a real photo. Hakeem Jeffries obviously took issue to it. And here's what he posted, Hakeem Jeffries. Let's show it. This was his response. This is real. So if you want a backdrop of where Washington is tonight, those 2 images say a little bit more than 1,000 words. All right, we stand by here for the breaking news as our coverage continues here on News Nation and on the Hill. Still to come as we watch the live images. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, saying a whole lot today.
But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign.
Hegseth rallying top generals, essentially saying no more fat generals, and that was just the start. What else he had to say in Quantico as our coverage continues here on News Nation. Stay with us.
First 50 homeowners who call now will receive a vacation voucher with purchase of a complete leaf guard system. Call now to take advantage of our double savings sale. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call now for Leaf Guard.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. President Trump and the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, hosting an unprecedented summit. Hundreds of top military leaders at a Marine base just down the road from us here in Washington. The newly renamed Secretary of War firing an assault on political correctness and laying out a new plan to reshape the military. Hegseth railing against DEI, announcing plans to overhaul the Pentagon's process for filing complaints and eliminating anonymous ones, and reinstating a New York Yankees-esque grooming policy. There will be no beards, he made it clear. Hegseth calling it Liberation Day against so-called woke policies, ending the war on warriors, as he put it.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
Joining us now, retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General, thanks for being here. Always nice to see you.
Blake, thanks for having me.
All right, so there's the comments, there's the events, and then there's sort of the actual lay of the land right now. On the comments, you heard some of them there. He also basically said we need fitness standards for generals. We don't want fat generals. We don't want fat troops. He also talked about male standards. Said if women and weak men can't serve in combat, so be it. You take exception to any of that?
Blake, my biggest concern with all of what you just said and he said is that there was an overemphasis on physical standards. We need military members that have high physical standards, but we also need them to have high judgment standards and moral standards and tactical standards and technical standards. And I think if we focus too much on one element of that to the detriment of the others, then we don't have the multifaceted warrior that we need in this day and age.
What about this, bringing these major military leaders over to Quantico, flying them in, doing this on camera in front of the commander-in-chief?
Blake, I don't think you needed that Rena audience for this particular message. I think he could have given this message to a camera, mandated that the entirety of the force watch it today, either live or recorded, and that would have had the same effect. The challenge is that they gave that message to an audience that was very intentional about being stone-faced and not responding. That's the professional thing for the military members to do, and he didn't need to bring all of those important leaders from their areas of responsibility and divert their attention away from their mission to be there in the audience.
All right, so those are the comments, the events, and then there's the actual, he's the Secretary of War, right? Which is interesting in itself because it used to be the Department of Defense. They've moved it to the Department of War, and he's talked about this this sort of warrior ethos, warrior mentality, war fighting. And here's what he said today, and then I want to get your reaction.
From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: war fighting, preparing for war and preparing to win.
All right, so war fighting, and I hear that, and my next question is, well, what war, right? Not saying there is going to be one, and of course no one wants one, but these are just some of the global threats. Obviously, you got Kim Jong-un still in North Korea, China and Taiwan, and whether or not China might invade, which is many folks believe is a when not if. You go to the Middle East with Yemen and Israel and Hamas, and go over to Russia, Ukraine. All of a sudden now we're blowing up boats when it comes to Venezuela. What do you make of this sort of new posture coming out of the Department of War?
Blake, there's two components to what I think Secretary Hegseth is talking about here. That it is the ability to deter and then the ability to defeat if necessary. But deterrence requires two elements. It requires strength of capability and strength of will. And I think part of the messaging today and through this Department of War is helping our adversaries understand we have strength of capability, yes, but also of will, which means if you counter our interest, we will respond decisively.
Retired Brigadier General John Teichert with us once again tonight here on the Hill. Nice to have you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, we continue to watch the breaking news up on Capitol Hill. Can we get a live look real quick at the Senate floor? Because they are expected to take a couple votes any moment now. It's 5 hours and 37 minutes away till midnight here in Washington. When those Senate votes happen, we will take you to the floor live. A government shutdown, the White House says, seems likely. Democrats feel that it is likely. And we continue our coverage here on News Nation. But first, on the other side of the break, the Trump administration announcing today a major deal with Pfizer.
We're going to celebrate this historic day, I predict, this historic day in the medical field for generations to come.
Dr. Mehmet Oz, one of the president's top health officials, touting a plan to lower drug costs. So how does it work? And is a government website in the works. The doctor's in on the other side.
Instaflex Advanced is so powerful, you could have better knees in just 1 week. Maybe that's why it's the #1 selling joint brand at GNC. But you can only get your complimentary sample by texting FEET to 369-369. Plus, text now and we'll include a tube of Instaflex pain cream with its exclusive oxygenated oil for fast-acting relief from the pain of arthritis, backaches, and sore muscles. Absolutely free. Text FEET to 369-369.
Pfizer is agreeing to provide some of their most popular current medications to all consumers at heavily discounted prices of anywhere between 50 and even 100%, and that's off the price.
Welcome back. A big announcement at the White House today. The pharmaceutical giant, Pfizer, agreeing to offer its drugs at a reduced price for Medicaid programs through what's known as Most Favored Nation. That means prices here in the U.S. have the same cost as the lowest one abroad. Now, Pfizer says they won't be hit with tariffs and will make manufacturing investments in the states as well. The White House also announcing that at some point next year, Americans will be able to shop for discounted drugs under the same policy on a government-run website called Trump RX. The president today saying this is a policy that he pursued in the first term, but couldn't see through due to the COVID pandemic.
I can't tell you how big this is, and I was all set to go on the first term, but then you had the COVID, and we had to focus on that.
With us now, here on the Hill, Dr. Mehmet Oz, the administrator of Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the deputy administrator, Chris Klump, who led the deal-making discussions. Doctor, deputy administrator, thanks for being with us tonight. I know it's been a busy one. You were in the Oval a lot. I'll start with you, Chris, because he was the one that was cutting the deals, right?
He made it all happen.
Most Favored Nation. Explain what this actually means and for Medicaid and for, I guess, even specifically these states.
What this means is for the first time after decades of failed attempts, President Trump has ushered in a historic outcome, which is real price reductions for actual patients at the pharmacy counter. What Pfizer represents is the first of many deals that have been cut that we're working on. In fact, we closed another just hours after the announcement in the Oval today.
You want to give me a name?
Not going to give you a name just yet.
As big as Pfizer?
Nice try.
As big as Pfizer, not going to steal the president's thunder. I know better.
Okay, fair.
But what we're talking about is indexing to the lowest prices in the wealthy world to make sure that Americans pay a fair price and that the rest of the world continues to invest in innovation.
So you know Mark Cuban, he's in this business. Here's what he said, and I'll again come to you because he name-checked you. He said, to the administration's credit, they had some great people working on this project. Chris Klump knows his stuff. Cold, so does his staff. They put people first. So I give the program and what we know as of today a grade of B. Why not an A? The stock prices of PBMs didn't get crushed. How can you both assure that what's going to happen is going to stay and isn't going to change down the line?
The president isn't about anti-PBM. The president vilifies pharmaceutical companies. The president fights for the American people. Today was about fighting for innovation. It was fighting for access. It was fighting for affordability for those American people. He cares about them. He understands the dynamics. He's not trying to vilify industry. He believes in free market capitalize. What he's also opposed to, free riding in Europe. Free riding of wealthy countries on the backs of American innovation, understanding full well that we'll pay for the R&D, 50% in the world. We'll pay the profits, 75% of the world, and they can pay barely above marginal cost.
How much, Doctor, were tariffs the factor here? That because of tariffs, Pfizer felt as if they needed to play ball. And Pfizer said today, basically, they've agreed to a 3-year period. How can Americans be assured that when the next administration comes in, it's not a snapback?
Well, I think the president made the point today beautifully that what he did today should have already happened. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter what administration preceded these efforts. We should keep our eye on this issue because it dramatically changes healthcare prices. We have Americans now having to choose between groceries and pharmaceuticals. 1/3 of the time when these Americans go to the grocery store, they can pick up food, but 1/3 when they go to the drug stores, they have to say, no, I can't afford it and walk away from it. That's not what we're used to doing. And so what the president asked us to do was to create a model that could be replicated for generations to come. That's why today was so historic. And I do believe tariffs are important. I also think some of the things that we could do within CMS were important because industry knows our ability to change their business model. And what they decided is they wanted stability. Look what happened to the Pfizer stock. And Mark talks about
6.5% up today.
Why does it go up? Because folks said, the administration could have done something that was irrational. We didn't. We realized that it was critical to protect innovation. The next event I had at the White House with the president was for children with cancer, to allow AI to diagnose their diseases faster so they can be treated with cutting-edge therapies. We don't want to strip the innovation out of American pharmaceuticals. We want industry to progress, prosper. We want America to be on the cutting edge always. We don't want to dull that knife by making rules that hurt innovation. But at the same time, we've got to be fair to the American people. And Chris, I want to hand it to him. And a bunch of his colleagues were able to do unbelievable work with complex negotiations, which if you don't bring top quality private sector people in the government, doesn't happen as well.
So tell me about Trump RX. What's that going to be? Is it a government website in which Americans can, when it's up and running, I guess, early next year? Is that right?
Next year.
So what do you envision with Trump RX?
We envision a single, easy place for all Americans to go and shop for pharmaceuticals and to know that they're getting the best prices. Many of those drugs, all of those drugs will be at worst better than the prices they can buy today, and many of those will be the best prices in the wealthy world. One click, easy convenience. You don't have to cross shop. You don't have to wonder if you're getting the best price on a pharmaceutical from your insurance company. You don't have to go look at an online pharmacy in Canada to get your drug because you can't afford it. This is the president's guarantee. We're getting the best fair price.
What would you say, doctor, to the idea of a government site, the government negotiating prices, coming from a conservative administration? I think some folks would look back and look, everybody wants low drug prices, right? Everybody wants it. That's apolitical. The question is how you go about doing it. Any concerns about it being a government price with the government getting involved in negotiation on prices and sort of mimicking some of these socialist countries abroad who have similar models?
When countries abroad that have socialist mindsets do this, they actually crush innovation. That's why all the innovation is happening in America, and we're funding most of the innovation, certainly for pharmaceuticals in the world. What we did today was just shake the Etch-a-Sketch. The system that had been codified was not working. If you go and talk to the individual pharma CEOs in person, in private, and that's what we did. We develop personal relationships and say, you went into this business because you cared about people. You have to, because you didn't pick this field. It's hard to be a pharma CEO. So what gives? Why would you and how would you defend charging 3 times more for the exact same product made in the same factory, in the same box, in the same bottle for an American than you would in folks overseas? Equal, by the way, Medicaid is even worse. You have vulnerable populations here paying 3 times more than affluent people in Europe. And you know what they say? Yeah, the jig's up. You got us. Let's make a deal. Let's figure out a way for this to be a sustainable business going forward. That's what entrepreneurial, capitalistic governments do, and that's what the president charged us with.
Do you see do you envision a world in which, like, I get all my stuff off Amazon or Target.com, right? Like, I've got young kids, I'm busy, I just get off the internet. Where Americans are getting most of their medications off of TrumpRx.gov, I guess would be the site. Is that where we're going in a few years?
TrumpRx.gov is just a convening site. We'll then farm the patient out for whatever drug they need, wherever they need to get it, wherever they want to get it. If they want to go to their pharmacy, go to the pharmacy. If they want to get it through Amazon, get it through Amazon. If they want to get it directly from the manufacturer, get it from their manufacturer. The government's not in the drug distribution business. Our job is in the fairness of pricing business. That's all we're doing. But these aren't price caps. These aren't price fixing. This isn't what Europe's been doing. This is free market. We're telling the manufacturers, price your drug at whatever you want. Just don't undercut us in another wealthy country. We need to retrain them to appropriately value innovation. That's the exercise.
Here was the president today, real quick, and then I want to get your reaction on the other side.
Obamacare is not a good thing. It's been bad, and I'd like to make it better. I told them. I spoke to a lot of people, a lot of Democrats recently. I said, why don't we change it? We can make Obamacare much better. We could come up with a new system that would be much better, less expensive for the people and better.
What's he hinting at there? Is he hinting at, like, Trump care? Like a new overhaul? What was the president saying?
What the president is saying is let's not get locked into the way that Obamacare has been used for the last 15 years. We have ways that we can make Obamacare work better. We can adjust it, fix it. Let's make solutions happen for the American people. There's no question that there's an opportunity for folks as they get off Medicaid, which they're going to be doing with the work requirement, as they enter into the workforce. Some people are going to need a hand up. Not a handout, a hand up. And the president wants to make sure that's available for them. But this is not something that we need to discuss until we get this continuing resolutions done, because we have a very easy, simple decision to make that Congress, I'm hoping, can get around their political issues and decide on funding the government. Then we have 7 weeks more, hopefully, to figure out exactly which of the ideas, the many ideas the president's considering will work. I want to also say it's not too late. We have time to address some of the issues, the shortcomings in the ACA programs. We want these markets to work well, but let's get to the finish line. Let's get past the CR. I can't have people come to work tomorrow because we're struggling over a government shutdown.
Interesting. It's a perfect place to leave it, Dr. Oz. Chris Klopp, thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Hope we get to do it again soon.
Hope so. Thanks.
Of course. All right. As the doctor mentioned, is that a live look? It is indeed. That, of course, John Thune on the Senate floor as our coverage continues here on News Nation and on the Hill. 5 hours and 22 minutes, if my math is correct, until the government shuts down. Both sides are saying that is what's coming. You just heard there from the head of Medicare and Medicaid Services. One of the implications, possibly. Our coverage continues on the other side when we return.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
So I'm going to save you from yourself once again.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate. Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central, only on News Nation.
It's on fire.
Thank you for all you do. Please keep doing everything you do because you're changing a lot of lives.
Call this special number or go online to loveshriners.org. Your gift will make a difference. Thank you for giving.
All right, breaking news coverage continues here on the Hill. 2 developing stories at this moment, top right of your screen. That is a live look on the floor of the United States Senate. As I've been telling you throughout this hour here, there were going to be 2 votes to try to keep the government open, one on the Democratic side of the aisle. That vote was just put up. As expected, it failed. Straight down party lines. 47 Democrats voting for it, 53 Republicans voting against. Now comes the Republican measure, and you can expect probably a straight party line vote there as well. Bottom line with this, at this hour at 6:45 here in Washington and on the East Coast, there is no solution tonight, at least not an imminent one, to avoid a government shutdown. Bottom right of your screen, one of the other major stories that we're following coast to coast. This is a live look right now, Chicago, Illinois, outside of Trump Tower. Anti-ICE protests continuing in that city for several days now. Full panel with me now. Mick Mulvaney back with us again. News Nation political contributor, former Trump White House Chief of Staff. Joe Cunningham, former Democratic congressman from South Carolina. Lindsey Granger, co-host of Rising on the Hill. And Mark Short, former Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Hello to you all. We continue to watch these 2. Let's go top right of the screen, though, for a second, because now what's going to happen, Mick, is they're going to put the Republican measure up. That's going to fail. And then we're at, just call it 7 o'clock here on the East Coast, and it's now what? A shutdown.
Dinner time.
Dinner time, then a shutdown. How long is the question?
Yeah, I got to think, Mark and I were just talking about when the next payday is. I can't remember if paydays are every 2 weeks or every 30 days.
For Hill staff and Hill members, it's 2 weeks. So
yeah, but Hill members get paid. The members of Congress get paid.
Staff would get roughly the 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's the pain point, because everybody's going to get paid. People are going to work and not get paid while they work, but technically, until the payday anyway, what difference does it make? Because you don't get paid every single day, right?
Because they just got paid today. Today was paid.
The point that you both are getting at is when does the pain start to hit, and whether or not that moves the needle.
When does somebody miss a paycheck?
Yeah.
Right.
Or miss a bill, which every 30 days. Once you start missing a mortgage payment or a rent payment, then I think it really starts to get compounded, right?
And I don't think we're in an economy where that's an option for a lot of people, to just have a check not come when you planned on it to go that way. And so I think we have a conversation about how this is looking, and the shutdown is overwhelmingly probably going to happen. But we're not thinking about the everyday American that's watching this from afar or personally affected by it because their husband works for the government in some way or wife does. And they're like, this is really affecting my family, while Congress, who's seen as largely ineffective, is playing games. Something that they think could be situated and solved by just having a real conversation about healthcare and not sending memes with a sombrero on, mocking.
Or Epstein pictures, too.
Keep in mind.
Right, at both sides. Right. They were both doing it, but that's what I mean.
Let's be honest with each other. No one really cares about this politically out in the hinterlands, okay? It's a big deal in Washington, D.C., and it should be because of what we do for a living, right? This is a government town. But if you're living in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, you don't care.
It's hard to think this is going to be an issue in the midterms.
It never
Traditionally, when it was a shutdown, it's an issue that would linger. In this world where there's a different news cycle every few hours, it's hard to see this going to be driving votes.
You were the director of Office of Management and Budget. The last time this happened in 2018 when it was 35 days. And at some point, Mick, it gets to a point of, okay, when have the points been made? And you throw all of that to the side and say, enough is enough.
There is, but I think what we're missing is this, is that the director of the Office of Management and Budget has tremendous authority during a shutdown. It's him or her who decides who's essential, essentially, and who's non-essential. It's why government shutdowns look so different under Democrat control or Republican control. During the 2013 shutdown, when I was in Congress, the mall was closed. Okay, the National Mall here in Washington, D.C. When we closed the government down in 2018-19, it was open. There's a great deal of authority that goes down to the Office of Management and Budget. What I understand from my Democrat friends is everybody says they don't like Donald Trump having all this executive authority, but that's what the Democrats are getting ready to give him tonight, because executive authority goes up dramatically during a government shutdown.
Well, you talked about how people don't really care about actual government workers if they don't live in Washington, which is a fair point to make loosely, right? But I think when you talk about what they care about is that everybody in Congress has to go home and talk to their constituents that are wondering why they might lose medical coverage within the next few years because of the big, beautiful bill, and saying, Chuck Schumer, you failed us last time, do something this time. And so I think where Democrats maybe had no backbone in the past, healthcare, as you pointed out, is one of their strongest polling issues. So this could be a point to change the trajectory of how people are viewing the party.
Everybody losing their health insurance because of one big, beautiful bill. One big, beautiful bill required work requirements. The same position that Barack Obama and Bill Clinton have had in the past. They're not taking away insurance from healthy Americans. They're taking away insurance from people who are sitting on their couch.
But they're asking to afford the American,
the subsidies are an entirely different story, because the Democrats were shrewd putting subsidies in Obamacare initially because they knew if there's a government takeover of health care, prices are going to go up.
But you know this better than I, but if you're explaining, you're losing. Right? And so what I just heard from you, this is the policy debate. No. But it feels like you're
because because Republicans have already passed a bill to fund the government. It's the Democrats that are opposing that, Blake. I'm making the case of point to Lindsay's argument. She keeps saying that you're going to be taking away insurance, which just isn't true.
So, but if there was a real conversation that could have happened, there was 3 weeks ago that Trump was supposed to meet with Democratic leaders and said, oh, never mind, I'm not going to do it. And now here we are talking about midnight being a few hours away. And this is not real that they're going to try to pass anything tonight. So why are we doing the theatrics? I think the American people are frustrated.
So look, what happens, Joe, when, and I mentioned you were in Congress the last time that this all
when Mick gave me the shutdown.
when Mick gave you the shutdown. What happens when Chuck Schumer hears it from Democrats of hold the line, hold the line, hold the line?
I mean, it's obvious that the left flank is in his ear, but I want to put a fine point on something even beyond D.C. I think this resonates. I think my first week on the job, when I walked into the longest shutdown in history, I was standing in front of the Coast Guard in Charleston, and a room about 50 or 60 so young people, men and women, and having to explain to them why they're not getting paid, because as we know in the armed services, you don't show up for work, you get court-martialed. Like they have no choice, and their spouses are depending on those paychecks. So it's not like people are going to be inconvenienced by a monument or a park being closed or whatnot. Like there are some real heartfelt impacts that increase and compound by the week.
We look at the live scene on the bottom right of the screen, which is Chicago, and more anti-ICE protests there. And I wonder, Mick and Mark, if there is a shutdown, which is likely, and if it lingers for quite some time, if we see the president start to double and triple down on those scenes on the right to sort of highlight that and then move the conversation elsewhere.
Sure, wouldn't you if you were him? I mean, he's winning that argument. Right, I think he's winning the immigration argument. You just said before, if the election turns out in the midterms to be about the economy, the Republicans should do well. Immigration, we should do well. If it's about health care, the Democrats should do well. That's just the way that things usually shake out. I think Trump is going to draw as much attention to the ICE protests as he possibly can. That's what I'd be telling him to do.
I agree with that. I do think typically that is true also on the economy. I fear it's not the case this midterm, because I think the president's trade agenda is really going to drive the economy down.
So live look, pop up the Senate floor if you can. I know it's top right of the screen, but I was just told that John Fetterman, a Democrat, voted yes for the Republican.
He signaled he would do that.
Yeah. So the question is, then that gets you from 53 to 54. Is there going to be anyone else?
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
Again, I think it ends when there's a notion that says, hey, we're going to have a vote on extending the Obamacare subsidies, which Republicans have already said, sadly, that they'll do. So This is going to find a resolution.
Or adjustment, right, on those from 400%, some downward adjustment. I mean, is there some way where Democrats and Republicans can both claim a victory?
When Chuck Schumer thinks he can deliver the votes without losing his job. I saw this with John Boehner.
Give me a number. Give me a number, real quick. How many days? 15?
I'd say 12.
30 days.
Whoa.
October 11th, next payday.
Next payday. Wow. All right. We'll leave it there for the moment. Our coverage continues. Other side of the break. Stay with us.
The one who looks to Grainger to make sparks fly. Getting it done right is a craft. It takes experience, the right material, and the right partner like Grainger with a wide range of professional-grade products. For the one, working hard means others can play even harder. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Senate floor, 3 Democrats have now voted with, Republicans still shy. As we know it at this moment, though, the vote is ongoing on the Senate floor to keep the government open. Mick Mulvaney, you think there's a parallel here to 2013 and John Boehner?
2013 during the Obamacare shutdown, John Boehner, as a Speaker for the House at the time, knew that if he had rolled over right away, he would have lost his job. But if he stayed around long enough to sort of get the caucus to where they wanted.
I think it's only 2 Democrats and 1 independent.
2 minutes. A little bit of a different situation, mostly just because Democrats are trying to rebrand exactly who they are after that bad loss with Kamala and in Congress, and so they have to stand firm in order to.
I think we're having some mic issues here. You got me. We got my mic. All right, they're telling me they got me.
Oh man, I had a profound speech.
You had a profound speech. You're good now?
Yeah,
right,
can you guys hear me?
What was your profound speech?
My profound speech was just saying that the Democrats are in a different position than then because they have to completely rebrand the party to figure out where they're going in the midterms and where they're going for the next election cycle. And by being firm, they might actually set the tone.
They're already losing votes. This isn't going to last long if they're having this many fissures. But both sides have already flipped. 2 years ago, Kevin McCarthy was dethroned as Speaker for pushing a CR, keeping spending at Biden levels. Every Republican voted against it. Every Democrat voted for it. Today, it's the same bill, and every Republican is now for it, and every Democrat's now against it. If your viewers don't have enough cynicism about Washington, that was
what a town, man.
Kevin McCarthy lost his job over.
I wasn't there when Kevin lost his job.
It's the same bill.
Yeah,
it is the same level.
Well, you say it's the same bill. The difference is the subsidies run out at the end of the year.
The environment is different, but the bill is the same.
So that's the distinction. Is that pressure was not on in the prior CR.
All right, our coverage continues here. By the way, as you just go 30,000 feet here, the impact of a shutdown, what will continue to operate? Social Security and Medicare payments, unemployment and jobless benefits, National Weather Service, law enforcement, of course, TSA, Veterans Medical Care, and the U.S. Postal Service. It's one of the many reasons why we continue our coverage here on News Nation as they are on the Senate floor trying to figure this out. I'm Blake Burman. I thank you for being with us tonight. Elizabeth picks it up from here.